mathematical terms, this means that the more Halliburton spends, the richer it gets. Now, we talked to former Halliburton employees who worked in Iraq. They told us the informal company motto was, "Don't worry about price, it's cost plus." Halliburton was supposed to be in Iraq to provide support for the troops, but the company used one standard for the troops and a completely different standard for its own executives. Halliburton employees stayed at the 5-star Kempinski Hotel in Kuwait, where it cost taxpayers $10,000 per day. This is the 5-star Kempinski. This gorgeous hotel offered maid service, complimentary fruit baskets to Halliburton employees. Our troops stayed in tents in the desert. At one point, a cost-conscious Army official asked Halliburton to move its employees into air-conditioned tents, but they refused. To their credit, career government auditors identified these overcharges. When they examined Halliburton's second oil contract, they harshly criticized Halliburton's performance, citing profound systemic problems and exorbitant indirect costs. But their recommendations were rejected. After reviewing Halliburton's first oil contract in Iraq, auditors recommended that the Army not pay $263 million in unreasonable and unsupported charges. But the Army ignored these auditors and paid Halliburton $254 million, over 95% of the disputed charges. And despite the auditors' findings, Halliburton was paid nearly $100 million in profits and bonuses for overbilling taxpayers. Well, Halliburton symbolizes what went astray in Iraq, but it's not the only contractor abusing the system. Parsons received the contract to rebuild health clinics throughout Iraq, but despite spending $186 million, Parsons completed just 20 of 142 health clinics they promised to build. Another firm, Custer Battles, received 2 security contracts. A federal jury recently found that the company committed 37 separate acts of fraud. These aren't isolated instances. There are over 70 corruption investigations currently underway in Iraq. These cases involve allegations of fraud, false claims, theft, bribery, and kickbacks. Some of the worst problems in Iraq are almost beyond comprehension. The U.S. management of the Development Fund for Iraq, which was the fund that held the proceeds of Iraqi oil sales, is a classic example of what not to do. The Coalition Provisional Authority handed out over $8.8 billion in cash to Iraqi ministries. And they had no idea what happened to the money. $8 billion in cash simply vanished. One former U.S. official who was in Iraq at the time, Frank Willis, described conditions as the Wild West. He said the lack of controls effectively created a free fraud zone. Iraq was awash in brand new $100 bills with no accountability to prevent corruption. And all the while, the White House looked the other way and Congress put its head in the sand. Under the Constitution, we are supposed to be a check and balance, but we've abdicated this responsibility. The Republican majority is terrific at applauding the president, and they're proving it again today with this dishonest resolution. Congress isn't doing the serious and important work it must do to protect our troops, rebuild Iraq, look out for American taxpayers. Congress must be more than a cheerleading section for the White House. The fiasco in Iraq was a windfall for some. Halliburton made more than $2 billion in profits last year. Its total revenue has increased by 66% since 2002. Another beneficiary was David Brooks. He's the CEO of a company that makes bulletproof vests. In 2001, Mr. Brooks reportedly earned $525,000. In 2004, He earned $70 million. Last year, the U.S. Marines recalled more than 5,000 of the company's armored vests. But by that time, Mr. Brooks had pocketed $186 million. Well, the American people might think that Congress would rise up in the face of such unconscionable profiteering. When our troops are willing to sacrifice so much, and they do sacrifice so much, how can we let others create cynical fortunes off their blood? As we debate this resolution, 2,500 of our bravest men and women have been killed in Iraq. Over 18,000 have been wounded, and the total cost of the Iraq war is over $300 billion. Those of us privileged to serve here have been spared any of the personal consequences of being on the front line. But we should not be spared the responsibility of doing our job. We owe more to our troops than slapping "I support troops" bumper stickers on our cars and extolling their courage. Instead of wasting time on partisan charades, we should acknowledge and fix the mistakes so that Iraqis can take over and our troops can come home. And we owe more than empty promises to American families who are paying for this costly war in Iraq. Additional 1 minute. They count on us to make sure their money is spent well, and we haven't done that. An honest, unsparing look at the record of these past 3 years tell us a stark truth. The White House and Congress have failed our troops, our taxpayers, and the Iraqi people. They deserve better than a partisan resolution that pats ourselves and the White House on the back. It's shameful that we're squandering money on Halliburton at the very same time that we don't have enough money to protect our troops. And it's shameful that Congress has abdicated its oversight and legislative responsibilities to rein in the incompetence and corruption that has undermined our efforts in Iraq.